You're listening to the Wildlife at the Crossroads podcast, your online adventure into Southwest Texas College's wildlife management program in Uvalde, Texas.
Okay, guys. Well, we're back again, and we finished the semester. I thought it was a pretty good semester. Y'all did one heck of a good job.
Yeah, up a great management plan.
Oh, I really like the management plan and the maps that they generated as a result on the Cat Hill Petaluma Ranch down there at Catarina. And, they did, that was the largest management plan we've had done ever. It was 31,000 some odd acres that I'm working with down there. And basically the students and y'all did a super good job. I got to say that was really good. But now, or you can remember when we were down there, it was pretty daggum dry.
It was bad.
It was nasty, but that's
Terrible.
South Texas, right? It stays dry. But, right now I talked to my people down there this morning. We had 2.5 inches last night. We had 2 inches last week. And we had, some inch and so on.
It finally feels like a year where it almost feels like it should be a normal year.
Right, things are green. Surprising.
Right.
We're not used to seeing green.
Yeah,
How fast.
It
that brush country is so resilient. It's like Africa. That's why you could carry more animals on that terrain, because it's boom when it gets the moisture.
And it's been, 5 years since we've seen a rain event like this?
And getting rainfall in the spring, too.
Yeah, and what Dean said, what's the big deal about spring rainfall? I mean, that's all about antlers, right?
Absolutely.
And quail hatching,
Exactly.
turkey, poults,
Yep.
you name it. It's the time of the year we hope to have rain, and it just amazes me how. And I've lived down there, have worked on those ranches down there for most of my life, and I basically still can't comprehend how fast it turns around.
Well, and even whenever you were living there, did you feel like it was as dry as it was?
Oh,
at the beginning of the year?
it gets terribly dry. You have 5 or 6 months, 2 years in a row of summertime heat, intense heat. I think the water evaporation rate out of Laredo is like 60 inches a year, 6 feet a year. 6 feet a year, and so it takes all the moisture out of the ground, and the brush actually goes into the dormant period.
Right.
Basically, it conserves all its energies in its roots until water hits.
Right. And so they do that year round.
Yeah, they have to compensate for whatever. But what's the big deal about the spring is forb growth, right? And why is that?
Rainfall, baby.
Well, it's 100% digestible.
Yeah, and it's 100. You hit the mark on the head there. It really, because brush, which is 50% digestible, could have an equivalent amount of crude protein in it. But what's digestible is what
That's the key.
is important.
Right.
It's really important to have those forbs available. And when we get that rainfall, boy, it's popping. It's a jungle out there now.
Well, and whenever you're producing flowers, you're producing insects for quail whenever they start hatching. And, it brings this country to life.
Yeah, well, all those insects you're talking about, that's all protein.
Yeah.
Quail chicks got to have that protein. Turkey poults, they got to have that protein. But the deer, when it comes to antler growth, forbs being highly digestible, 100% digestible, and very high in crude protein, some 25% crude protein. Basically, man, that's your antler growing material
that's
right
the
there.
engine right there that
Yes.
gets those antlers growing, and boy,
so
we needed it.
Do you anticipate kind of forecasting into this fall? Do you think we've had enough rain to this point to really see enough for antler growth, or
No,
We need
we're
a
having a
continuation.
good spring, but my philosophy is this: it's not how much rain you get, it's how often you receive it. In other words, the evaporative rates are tremendous. The heat is incredible down there. Okay, and if the months, so to speak, could share the rainfall.
right?
Through at least summer, early summer, peak fawning seasons, mid-July in South Texas, where they can have more escape cover. Okay, you have higher reproductive or fawn survival rates. So that all that it's I'm not trying to say that we won't have a great deer season or anything like that, but in order to have an outstanding deer season, you guys know what it takes.
It's too early on. It's too early.
Yeah, it's
But
very.
we're staging.
Yeah.
We're staging
It's set,
well.
we're getting a good starting point right now.
No question about that. Yeah, and deer eat a lot. I mean, what's an adult buck? What he's going to eat?
About 6 pounds.
About 6 pounds of forage. Well, and they're crepuscular.
So let's say, you're saying 6 pounds of forage. How big of a buck are you saying? Well, is it like a 100-pound?
About 150 pound, 150 pound, yeah. Yes, in that neighborhood. And our deer, when you're looking at weights in South Texas, especially in these areas where they're now consuming a lot of crude protein pellet, or they're being supplemented, man, they're consuming more because they're bigger bodied. Okay.
Right.
But 6 pounds, generally speaking, that doesn't mean some deer don't consume less because of body weight, and some don't consume even more. Okay. But, just think about it. 6 pounds. One of the activities you guys conduct in wildlife techniques is have your students pick up.
It's a fun lab.
It's a good lab.
Yeah, and because no one really realizes how much forage makes
It's
out of 6
surprising.
pounds.
No idea.
No.
It's a blast to watch them, And go ahead.
Yeah, and so what we do on this lab is that we have I'll take 20 students out into a ranch, and we'll give them all bags, and they have to pick brush with their hands.
At the very tips.
The very
where
tips,
deer
new
eat.
growth.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so they have to be very selective, just like how a deer's a concentrate selector. And so watching these students go out all different directions, they're in little groups.
Because they
but
think it's easy.
they
They're
think
gonna
it's
knock
easy.
it out.
We'll let 20 students go for about, 30 minutes to an hour. What's the most you think we've gotten in pounds?
Well, I would say on actual forage,
Right.
maybe about 3 or 4 pounds.
Yeah, about
tops.
3 or 4 pounds in an hour that these students go.
It's
And
I never got
what
it
ends
that
up
high.
happening, because we always do a little competition with it, and this is where it gets funny. I always start putting little rocks in there.
Yeah. Oh,
wow.
yeah.
They're
Prickly
gonna
pear.
They're gonna put prickly pear in there.
Oh, yeah.
They'll throw in anything to try to hide.
We-
just to
we've had-
add some weight.
You remember when Denton Mesquite climbed the mesquite tree
Oh,
for the
yeah.
mistletoe?
Yeah, you got some pictures of that time. You're climbing that mesquite tree. He couldn't find any mesquite, but he wanted
no.
to get as much weight.
And
He
so-
climbed up.
That's good.
I mean-
Hey, I'd have to give him credit for it. That's ambition.
Well, I give him credit that he knew that deer eat mistletoe.
They
it's just
dig,
they're
I'm
not
sure
going to
do.
eat it at 20 foot in the tree.
Well, the point of that exercise is that they would pick the promeristem tissue, which is the very terminal ends of the plant, of the brush.
Yeah.
And that's where the crude protein lies, because that's the
Right.
new growth. And so in order to do so, they got to be very selective. Deer are very selective. They just don't go around there and mow down grass like a cow does. Matter of fact, they won't eat grass because it's lignified,
Yeah,
okay?
right.
But there's too much lignin in it. But basically, when they're foraging on brush, they're just what?
Just little bites at a time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're not eating all one particular plant. They're
Right.
eating
They're
multiple
randomly
plants,
hitting
Yeah.
plants.
So it's
Exactly.
not just wahoo or Virginia or kidney wood. They're eating multiple species.
Well, if you look at the feeding strategy too, they're a prey species, so they have to eat quickly.
Yes.
Bob mentioned a term earlier, crepuscular. So most active in the early morning hours and the late evening hours for about 2 hours around sunset. So they're eating kind of quickly, and they're hitting the brush to ruminate for a while. They're not doing that throughout the entire day. It's just little short
Morning, right.
snippets
Yep.
throughout the day.
Yep,
that
it's
they're
pretty
feeding.
amazing. We'll look at it here in a second, but the volume, and how much they have to eat. It's when we go through that exercise with the student, it blows them away because they have no idea.
Well, and especially for our area is whenever we can do it in a drought condition, because then it's harder to find the actual edible forage
Right.
for
Yep.
those deer. It's a lot more cost to the energy that they have to put out.
Yep. And I actually saw that in my research when in 2009 we had a bad drought in Kingsville. They had to forage longer in the afternoons to get the food that they needed. So then what happens then is they get they're more exposed to heat, more
Right.
exposed to predation. So
Yeah.
that's a risk that they have to take, or a trade-off, in other words.
Yeah, especially for the does. They got to leave their offspring
Absolutely.
alone for a while. I mean, they may be scentless for a day or maybe after birth, but after that, a coyote walk by, he gets a whiff of a fawn. That fawn's good as dead.
Oh, yeah.
And mama's not there to protect it. So, there's a lot of things going on out there while they're feeding. But again, rainfall is important. But I think, what we're going to try to do here is provide our audience with a little bit of a visual of how much food it takes, or how much small cuts of browse it takes to make 6 pounds.
Right.
And like we said, some are 6 pounds, some are 8 pounds, consuming 8 pounds a day. Depends
Doe
on body weight.
A doe could be less too.
Yeah, and a
would be less.
doe is obviously much less. Okay, but anyhow, so what I'd like to do now, Daniel, what Daniel would like to try to do right now is he and Dean have provided us with some forage that makes up 6 pounds, okay, in weight. And you can see that this stuff is all bits and pieces of forage that deer would relegate as being important in their diets. And so,
Which camera? Okay. It's over there towards you, Bob.
And so what we've done, and then we collected, it's all browse, so it's not forbs, all right? But so obviously we'd have a lot of forbs right now as a result of rain, but when we don't have any rainfall, right, guess what they're going to be selecting? Browse, and so browse is really important.
and what is the capacity of
This
this?
is a 15-gallon tote.
Okay, so this is 15 gallons, and that's how much forage a deer has to eat during the day.
One day,
Okay,
yeah.
in one day.
One day, it's
and
pretty
that's
amazing.
really boils down to maybe 4 hours, to be honest. 2 hours in the evening, 2 hours. And in the summertime in South Texas, they don't come out, they don't move until it's
Very
like
much. Yeah.
almost dark.
When deer are foraging, obviously, like we talked about earlier, they're going to be foraging morning and evening. But I've noticed them during midday. Sometimes they'll be nibbling here and there because they'll get up and when they're ruminating. But really, and sometimes at night, a little bit of forage intake as well. But in the morning and evening is when they're really going to be hammering.
Yeah, and then there's nocturnal feeding too. They're going to move. In South Texas, I always thought deer are forced to become nocturnal. I don't believe that's the case anymore. I believe that they are really inherently driven to that because of temperature.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it depends on the region they live in. And in South Texas, man, all the cameras that people have out now, they're all going, man, we must have really spooked them because we're only catching them at dark. No, they're hot. It is brutal.
Yeah.
And they got to eat this much of forage, 8 pounds of forage, 6 pounds, and sometimes 6 to 8 pounds of forage a day, a buck. He's not going to he can't be out in that sun all that time.
Right.
Not only would he fry, he'd be susceptible to predators as well, and any other factor.
Well, and going back to drought, seeing this amount of forage, it really makes sense to actually supplemental feed during those hard times to be able to give that cost benefit.
Well, the other thing is,
to
like
those
you guys were out picking this forage, it wasn't that hard to find.
No,
that
it was
forage.
easy.
4 weeks ago, month ago.
Oh,
It wasn't.
It
there,
would have taken a
especially down
little
in
longer
Catarina, there
to
was
get-
just mesquites were leafing out.
Yes.
When we were down there. That was it. It was really bad.
It's just
Really bad.
it'd have been really tough. And just think of the deer, because they just don't like leaves or parts of a plant that are lignified or dried out. They want the succulent terminal ends that are new growth. Well, there's no new growth in drought. Like we said earlier, everything is conserved. All the energy sources are conserved in their roots. They'll let the top of the plant die until they get an adequate amount of rain. But when we're speaking about rain, that's another thing that's really incredible, because when we're looking at like how much 1 inch of rain, how many gallons there would be in 1 inch of rain over 1 acre, we've got it down here at 27,154, gallons
And just 1 inch.
of water with 1 inch
Of
of rain over 1 acre. And, that's not a very big amount of land. Then you take a 100,000 acre ranch or a 10,000 acre ranch, and it's millions of gallons of water.
Then it
Per
starts
inch.
making sense how you can fill some stock tanks.
Yes,
Get some
it gives
runoff
you
of that.
yes, and but you got to remember, you get this kind of rain, it's only periodical.
Right.
Okay, it's not continuous, and what happens is the evaporative rates are much higher
Right.
than the rainfall is. Okay, and like I said, 6-7 foot of evaporation in the Webb County alone on an annual basis. That's why we dig our stock tanks down there in a V angle, so that it alleviates or reduces the amount of heat, evaporative capability of the heat on the shoreline.
And so you'll specifically make your slopes on your pond steeper
Yes.
to reduce
Yes,
evaporation.
and that makes it hard on when you're managing fisheries, because fisheries, we like to have a lot of shallow water and different areas for forage fish and such. But for purposes of relinquishing water or providing water to all wildlife, to conserve it, it's pretty much a V cut into the surface.
And livestock can handle that just fine.
Yes, yeah. It could be dangerous, to a degree. I'm not talking like such a very sharp angle. It's kind of a general looking thing of an angle, but and over time it rapidly dries out. So they're just dealing with the part where they go up to drink the water. But it can be dangerous, and for the animals.
Something always to pay attention to.
They could, and for ranchers too.
Well, that's what they say, when we have our rain, it's a blessing, and we're very fortunate to get it right now. But, tomorrow's always the next day, closest day to our next drought, and so we'll take the rain right now, and hopefully we can get more percolation through it and soil infiltration, and then to our aquifers, and to help build up our stock tanks, as Daniel said, and rivers and creeks, and because it's such a water is a precious resource that we've got to.
It's more powerful than gasoline, in my opinion. I mean, we can live without gasoline somehow. You can't live without water. But when you're talking about the springtime, what do we normally think about in spring? Antlers.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is they're already growing. I mean, you see them some 8-10 inches long, with their G1s already protruding considerably actually. And so this rain plays a big role in antler growth. Why? Because of the vegetation, obviously, but the temperature as well. I mean, it all plays a role in the comfort of that animal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, temperature, it's cooler. They're more able to move about, and they're not restricted as far as foraging when it's too hot during the day. So it definitely helps them out.
Yeah, and I've got a question for you. So maybe changing topics just a little bit, but you've got an incredible career in wildlife, over 40 years in the private sector. You literally had the first supplemental feed study, and then you were also there whenever they were looking at the spike study with genetics. And so, we're talking about feed and looking at nutrition. What would you put more emphasis on for the private landowner, nutrition or selectively harvesting culling? Because I know that some of the things that you've looked at in the past with some of these big ranches with deer numbers is that you look at how many mouths you can take off.
Yeah, and I use that. I use that like the spike sometime philosophy, which I don't agree with. But basically, I could use it if an individual that I'm working with is very insistent that he thinks spikes, they already tell you the answer they want to hear.
Yeah.
And if he's telling me, well, I think I need to take spikes, well, I say, yeah, you go ahead. Why? Because there's still mouths being removed from the habitat. So anytime I could get reduction in numbers, you're going to see a rebound in quality, okay?
Right.
Because more nutrition is left for the survivors. So that's very important. Selective harvest, to me, and I've written articles 15, 20 years ago about it, it's not that effective. I mean, it's more natural to have a deer that we pretty much call a less than trophy caliber than it is to see a trophy caliber deer be produced. Okay, and so that's that's nature. That's just the way it is. It's the bell curve. There's very few that make it
to the top,
to that very top, and so I like to think that selective harvest is just another excuse for me to get deer off the ranches. If there is one problem we have with deer herds, it would be populations. Populations are too high, and they should be reduced. And a lot of people are concerned about taking too many deer. But like rats, they reproduce rapidly, and I like to test it. Because first of all, our surveys that we conduct in that, they're not genuinely accurate.
Right.
Okay, we could miss a considerable number of animals, which we obviously all know. You guys have been on surveys, you know that you just don't see them all, and particularly the older ones that you want to see, because they generally grow the largest antlers. Well, so it's all a byproduct of population control. I think population control, and then probably the paramount ingredient to quality deer management is nutrition.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about putting feed to them all the time. I'm talking about aerating vegetation, roller chopping, aerating, creating openings for forbs, because once the sunlight permeates that soil, what happens when we get a rain? Boom, we get forbs.
Yeah.
If we leave the brush there, no forbs.
Right.
A lot of brush, which is fine. But basically, I like to have a mixture.
And so you're trying to make it easier for your deer to be able to get that 6 pounds per day that they're going for.
Yeah. I want them not only to get it easier, but to increase the crude protein content in what they do consume. Now, like right now when it's raining, and if you have, say, aerated areas, and you're not taking out your good brush like kidney wood and all that, no. You're aerating in different areas, and you're generating or creating a lot of opening, and then you get a rain like this. Wow, you hit a home run.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody looks like a great biologist.
Yeah. Well, rain makes us all look good, right? I mean, there's no question about
we'll
that.
Take it.
Yeah, but but habitat work, man, when you get the rain after it is awesome. And when you aerate or roller chop, it lasts for about 3 years, then it outgrows the height of the animal. And you got the other thing about when we're aerating and roller chopping is we're putting the vegetation back within reach of the deer. Because a lot of times you'll walk ranches and you'll see vegetation high quality, but it's out of reach of the deer, so it's irrelevant, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, like when you're looking at like hackberry and some of those types of species that are preferred by deer, and ranked pretty high up in the top 10.
Choice,
Well, that's great. And a lot of times I'll walk around and I could see a lot of hackberries on a ranch, but none within reach of the deer.
Or maybe even not even regrowth.
That's what it is. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't care if there's 100 hackberries out there. If none of them are down this low where a deer could actually consume it.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening on those places, and it should tell you, or the habitat should tell you what's happening, and that's probably too many deer. So they're not allowing regeneration to flourish.
Now, for our area, what would you consider would be too many deer? Like what are your things that you're looking for that you can share?
Well, from the aerial surveys I conduct, I like to see deer, an adult deer in South Texas, deer to 30. adult deer to 30. I'd rather take it to adult 40. And if you reach that level, which I have in the past, you'll see great quality, rising quality, no question in my mind, and it's super. Am I producing a bunch of 200-inch deer? Heavens no. I mean, that's just, just stick a fork in that. That's not really what it's all about. But 160 caliber inch deer, 170s, you get a few 180s. These are real deer.
Well, I hadn't put it
They're
in a
not
very
released
natural
deer
state.
or anything like that. These are natural deer on the ranch. So it's important that we always consider that the habitat really is the infrastructure, the wildlife management. I mean, we always say, I hear y'all say people skills,
Right.
Communication. I always say communication overrides ignorance, as long as you could talk to people, you could get across your point, and you know what you're talking about, it's a very good thing. But, we have, we got a lot of professionals anymore, I don't know that they've got degrees or anything, but I don't necessarily think that you have to have a degree to be a professional deer manager or anything like that. You have to have experience. And that's another point. Some of the landowners I work with, I'm just amazed at how much they know. And one thing I have learned over the last 45 years is the fact that, who do I think I am to come out to a guy's place twice a year and tell him what he got or what he doesn't have when he's out there all the time.
Exactly.
He knows more about that deer herd or the quail population or the turkey population than I do.
Seeing the people and being able to talk to the people that are passionate about their deer herd, they may not know the names of the plants, but they know exactly when those animals are hitting those plants, how hard they're hitting them. Their observations are outstanding. And then to be able to talk about the history of their property to them, and some of the deer that they pulled off, and just get some of the history. That's one of the cool things about what we do, is to have that just relationship with them.
Yeah, having that open gate policy, having an opportunity to visit that ranch where they, a lot, with some of the ranches that we visit, a lot of the ranches we visit, we're very fortunate because that is a very big property and had a very big price tag with it as well, and so we're blessed to be able to visit those properties and take our students out there as well, and a lot of the ranches you work with, Bob.
So Bob, I got another question for you. You've seen, we talked a little bit about selective harvesting and habitat management, and you've seen the trends that hunters have had through time. When was the switch to habitat management really the thing? Because me growing up in the 90s and 2000s, I felt like we were really heavy on selective harvest and culling as being the big thing that we do with our deer herd. But it seems like you've always been a mainstay of habitat management, but how have those trends changed? And now it seems like supplemental feed's the big trend.
Well, supplemental feed's the, management out of the sack. It's relatively much easier yet more expensive than organized deer management type concepts that we normally have employed in the past and still do today. But I don't. The change. The people have changed, not the deer herds.
Yeah.
And we have people today that they're after this instantaneous gratification, okay? They can fly on a big plane, whatever, get down there, boom, pop a deer and go. Okay, it's fast. Their lives are fast. Can't blame them. They can afford it. Can't blame them for being able to do it quickly. But it's almost like cameras. Today you can't even go anywhere without being on film somewhere on somebody's ranch, because cameras are everywhere. And that to me is a bigger concern than anything, because not that it I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I love filming deer, but there's a time we ought to leave the deer be, and one of those times is deer hunting season, because I like to enjoy the anticipation of what could show up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what hunting, after all, is all
Not
about.
knowing what's going to
Not knowing what's coming. And if I'm going to just sit there and watch cameras and, he's coming in at 9 o'clock each morning, 3 in a row, then I'm going to be there the fourth day and maybe harvest animal. I guess there's nothing wrong with that, but to me, it doesn't feel comfortable.
Right.
And I don't behoove anybody that does that, but I think the deer today are harvested optimally from that standpoint. Whether it has an impact on the genetic strain or not, I can't say. I would hesitate to say that it does, but I down deep, I believe it could.
Yeah.
Because if you keep removing the very best, chances are you could maybe hinder the genetic component to a degree.
Almost take the top off of the
Possibly.
ranch.
Yeah, possibly. But you're really not, because you got to remember the dose, and they can represent 75% of what their offspring look like.
Yeah.
Okay, they can contribute that much, and basically, if that's the case, we're just thinking about bucks. Well, then it offsets.
Right.
Okay, so but there's a lot of things we think about in hunting over time, and what was your other question? Because I'm an old man, I can't remember everything.
Just seeing how it changed over time. What is kind of going back to what is more important? Is it necessarily genetics or the nutrition, and how has that changed through time? And we've kind of come to supplemental feed now.
Quality deer management or managing for optimal levels of deer is a three-legged stool:
Right.
age, nutrition, and genetics. And you get more benefit from age than any other factor, right? Just let the deer age, and you're going to have bigger deer.
That's the easiest thing.
That's the easiest thing. That's a guarantee.
Right.
That's a topic that we debate quite a bit in our class, because we'll bring that up, and I'll ask students, what do you think?
Yeah, what do they say?
A lot of times it's not age, believe it or not. They think it's nutrition, and then some of them say genetics as well. And so it's a really good conversation, and we'll talk about that for 30, maybe the whole class period, going back and forth. But when you bring in age, obviously
It's like it's the overlooked thing.
it's overlooked, because yes, you want to have the genetics and you want to have the nutrition, but they have to get old enough to express that, right?
Yeah, there's no
You
such
gotta have
thing
the
as
age is crucial. That's
Yeah.
really the very important area that is overlooked sometimes, and we get focused. And I everyone's guilty. I'm guilty, I'm sure. Focusing on genetics. Potential selective harvest, or having that nutrition and habitat and pulling in supplemental feeding. But sometimes it's just a lot of times it's age and just holding off on that trigger.
Right.
And it's just like the spike deal, and that's genetic. And I went through all that. I was there when that study started at the Kerr area. I was there at night at the campfire when it was decided that it would be conducted, matter of fact. And that's been a while ago. But the thing about spikes is, I have one landowner I work with in Jim Hawken, Zapata County. It's a good-sized ranch, and basically it's high fence. They protein feed now. They didn't used to. They used to not do any of that. But they've been harvesting spikes religiously. And, I keep all the data, and I got it down, and, 20-some spikes a year or whatever. And there's still a bunch of spikes, and they've been doing this for maybe, 10, 12, 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So if it was a genetic thing in the buck herd, it should be a little harder
To find a spike.
to shoot spikes. At least that's the hypothesis.
Right.
But it isn't. And they whack them, and they ask me, I said, I don't really have either way. I don't care, as long as we're taking deer off, it doesn't matter. My concern is, just wonder what percent of those you harvest could be better than what we're trying to, towards what our goal is.
Right.
Because you never know that. But deer management is it's nothing earth-shattering that we've learned. We know what we're doing. everybody does in management. Some people do it different, but it's in the terrain you work in. It's in your geologic region. You know, there's 10 ecoregions in the state of Texas. You pick some and you're bad luck.
Yeah.
You pick others and wow, you think you're doing something, but it's the soil, and it all starts with the soil.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the vegetation.
Right.
Then it goes to the time they're allowed to live. And you know, genetics is my least concern. That's the least I worry
They
about.
can't control that at all.
No, and you know, a friend of mine, Donnie Drager, with Charlie DeYoung, and they've conducted studies on a ranch in South Texas, a large one, and they found no difference in how their animals are harvested based on critically removing what most people would call bugs. But they would do that, and it provided no evidence that it benefited the rack size of the others.
And so on a population level, it may not necessarily be which deer is removed. It can be any deer with any antler quality. All that really matters is that a deer is removed to allow more resources for your other deer.
Absolutely.
And over time, it'll just continue to get better if you're doing appropriate habitat management.
And that's one of the reasons they established the management land deer program, you know, to give ample amount of time to harvest an adequate number of animals. A lot of people, and I do agree with this, that to harvest them, when it's legal, harvest them as early as possible. Take the mouth off, one more mouth off every day if you can from the range. Makes perfect sense to me. But the bottom line is to harvest an adequate number based on a good, sound inventory of the population. And we all know that we can't inventory populations to be exact.
Right.
But if you know your ranch and you've been doing it long enough, you have a good gut feeling of what your survey data tells you. And besides that, it's actually trend data. So if you're doing it every year, you know whether that population is going up or down.
Well, and even hunters, every time they go out into the blind, what's your average number of deer that you see every sit? You know, is that
all that
fluctuating as well?
data, you know, that's other data that we could use. Yeah, it's, what do y'all teach the students? You know, what do you tell a student when he says, well, I don't really keep track of anything. I just look for a big buck.
Well, it depends on the size of the property, you know. It's like, well, if they've got 15 acres, it's a little bit difficult. I mean, obviously, if they're not seeing very many deer anymore and they're on 15 acres, well, probably there's a lot of deer being shot around them as well if they're harvesting a bunch. And so, you know, depends on size, obviously.
Yeah, and no matter what the size is, there's always something that can be done. You can always add a water. You can add something. You can try to clear an area out and do a little food plot strip. Experiment with whatever you have. It doesn't matter the size. You experiment a little bit of it. And with a student, you just want to see that excitement and that passion come in for the chance to even see a trophy.
Yeah, you guys are privileged to see that
it.
because you take young folks in the program out on a hunt every year and actually get to introduce them to the sport and get to see the looks on their face when they get to harvest their first deer.
That's exciting.
And that first animal is really you know, you never forget that. Myself personally, I've shot a lot of really pretty deer in my life. But man, my first one, I can still see it so distinctly. It's unreal. And he was just about like that, you know, but his biggest deer in my life, in my opinion, and I've killed Boone and Crockett whitetails, but hard to say that, but it's a fact because of the excitement level. And, you know, I was in my early years, so it was, you know, and deer hunting, you know, I think it's starting 75, 76. We went through all the way to 2000 and maybe 2010. That was the golden era, in my opinion. Okay, and I was blessed to be able to work big country during that time period. High-scoring deer were prized, incredible, and we didn't have all the artificial kind of things that we have now. But it was the golden age, and basically our habitat worked and allowing deer to grow old and die. my main philosophy in trophy deer management is if you don't have deer dying of old age, you're not managing your deer herd right. Okay, that's my philosophy. But on the other side of the coin, you got to be very careful because you could have a 3 or a 4-year-old that just blows up and is really a great rack, and you think you can't believe he's 3 or 4.
That could happen this year too.
Yes. And the other thing of getting back to the vegetation when it rains, much of the vegetation now a lot of it is McDonald's and Whataburger food. Okay, it's relished. They love it. Okay, but what if you measured the crude protein content in it and all that, you'd find out that there's more water, fluid in a lot of these plants. And they're not eating higher priced food all the time. They're eating the stuff they like. Right. They're like your kids will be, okay? They're like,
fish,
water
question.
And like Bo, you're not going to tell him they got to eat. No, you can't eat that. You got to eat this. This is healthy.
Oh, no.
Healthy? Give me a break.
It's like every time I try to feed my girls versus my wife feeding my girls, they look at my food and it's like, that ain't what mama gives us. There's a big difference in between what you can get a kid. And
so
I can see deer being the same way.
Yeah, and the deer, they are that way. And so it's important that we know how to age deer too. All this it's a cumulative effect of knowledge. And it takes a lot of years and really you could understand it and comprehend it, but until you're practicing it and you got a hunter next to you and he's paying $10,000 or today a lot more than that, and you pick a deer and you're wrong, on score, and he's probably saved up most of his middle-aged salaries just to go on this trip, and so the pressure's on you. So then it brings in two factors. You get nervous. It's tense. It's hard. But when you're correct, which normally most of us can because we experience it enough.
Right.
And what happens is, boy, it's a pretty refreshing feeling to see a guy realize something that's so wonderfully nice to him.
No
or
question.
Important to him, anyhow.
Rewarding, yeah. Definitely rewarding.
Yes.
Yeah, just thinking back of those experiences, especially with guys from out of state that have never seen a deer over 120, and they shoot like a 140-inch deer. It's a lifelong dream. Watching those lifelong dreams come to fruition. Watching grown men cry over a deer, I don't know, but it'll get you emotional.
I got to tell you a story. First time I meet Al Brothers. Al, who is, a renowned biologist, probably, in my opinion, one of the top deer biologists in the country and has been for many years. He's 90. I think 91 now. We hunt together each fall, winter, and we have a little get together every spring. But he, I was reading an article about him in Corpus Christi News, and I was just a knuckleheaded Yankee from Pennsylvania. Charlie DeYoung accepted me as a graduate student, and I'm down there at Kingsville in that. In their graduate program in the Clayburgh Institute, or just before they even established the institute. Charlie was working on it at the time, he and Dick Davis. And I was told by week after, while I was reading this article, that this guy called Al the father of the white-tailed deer. I said, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And because a week later, I knew he was manager of the Rancho Blanco Ranch owned by the Zachary family, and I knew that's where I was going to do my graduate work, but I never met him. And a week later, Charlie says, we're going down to Laredo and we want you to meet Al and get kind of situated. And wow, I got kind of nervous, Yeah. Well, long story short, I drive down there with Charlie, and I'm driving. I got a brand new Duster. Beautiful car, tour red, black vinyl roof. I was just, my dad got it for me when I graduated, and and it wasn't like it cost today. It was very reasonable. But the thing is, it was something I was very proud of. Anyhow, I get down there to Al's and I pull in way off into the side by his house on the ranch, and we get there and nobody's there. Well, we're sitting around, waiting around, Charlie and I are, and all of a sudden I see a contrail dust forming on this circular caliche road that almost doesn't encircle their road, but it's half moons the front of the road on the north side. And it's Al. I didn't know, but it's Al. And he come whipping in there, dust a-flying, and jumps out of the truck. And he had a Ford pickup. And he jumps out of there and says, just like a howdy or something, and just boom, goes right in the house. Meantime, old Chata, that's his German Shepherd, she's there right at the gate, and that dog tear your head off. I'm not scared of dogs, but that dog, man, every time we went up the gate, because I thought maybe, I didn't know Claudia at the time, Al's wife, but I thought maybe somebody was in the house. There ain't no way I'm going in that yard. Although Charlie would have sacrificed me happily to do that. But anyhow, so, all right, so another long story short, here comes Al. He's back out, and he had a pickle jar full of ice and Dr. Pepper. That was his favorite drink, man. That's all he drank. And he comes out, you guys, it doesn't even, don't give me a chance to shake his hand or nothing. He's always going 100 miles an hour, mentally. And he goes, you guys want to go for a ride? How you doing, Charlie? You want to go for a round? Make a round? And Charlie says, yes. Yeah, that's good, Al. So we hop in the truck, and I hop in the middle. Charlie's on the far passenger side, right side.
Bench seat?
Al's driving. Just a single seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we go, and he backs up, and bam. And just, I feel this jolt. And that's, I didn't pay attention. One thing that Charlie told me before I got down there is that one thing you got to watch is that Al's a practical joker. Man, he likes pulling jokes. And I never forgot that. I did. Man, I held that. I'm kind of a practical joker myself, but I'm dealing with a serious dude now, okay? Well, we start driving off, and Charlie looks back. Al looks back and goes, dang. He didn't say dang, but I'm being polite. And he said, I hit your car. And I went, yeah, right.
Did he get out and look at it?
I ain't biting on. I'm not biting on this, And we start driving out, and we angled. He angled the truck to make the start on the Half Moon Caliche Road, and I looked in that side mirror, and I saw this V dent right in the side of my back quarter panel on my duster.
Did he even get out to look at it? He just got going.
No. He said, man, and he said, dang, I hit your car. But don't worry about it. We got insurance. And anyhow, we drive up, and the first thing I see is an 8-point deer that I bet it would have probably scored 140. And that's not overly big, but it was big to me. It was like, whoa, I forgot about my car. That's how excited I was. Anyhow, that's how I was introduced to the man called the father of the white-tailed deer. And the neatest thing about that is, before I left the ranch, when I graduated, Al presented me with a wonderful gift, one of the neatest things I ever got, and it's a big picture. You've seen it, big frame picture, of a Don Keller painted it, another good friend of both Al's and mine, and he painted a double drop tine buck, and it is just a magnificent picture. And above it, it said, to the stepson of the father of the white-tailed deer.
That's cool.
From Al Brothers.
I think in the bottom corner he should have put just a little nugget of that duster in there or something.
No, I'll tell you, if you knew how much they wore me out down there on the ranch, because we worked cattle and everything. But another thing, when I was there, we were dealing with screwworms, and that was
coming back around
at the back end, and now we're dealing with screwworms again, and we may have a podcast on it here in the near future, but it's been verified that we had screwworms, I think, close as 58 miles.
Yeah, close to the border.
And so new facilities are coming up, but when they're going to get done, we don't know. But anyhow, we'll talk about that later. Right now, we're going to enjoy the wet conditions.
Yeah, what a blessing. Yeah, we'll definitely take the rain.
Yeah,
and more of it.
And we'll be out in the field next week, guys, and we'll be enjoying some of that nice, cool, damp weather, because it's still going to rain next week, I believe, all the way through next week.
I think we have some chances.
Yeah, good deal.
Bring it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, enjoyed it, guys.
Yep, it was a good one.